we go. The union's most recent proposal is seeking a salary cap of just below $9.5 million and 27.5% of the shared revenue over the lifetime of the league. A source familiar with the league says the claims this would result
in the cutthroat, multi-billion-dollar ecosystem of professional sports. There is a massive, fundamental difference between a public relations war and a mathematical reality. And right now, the WNBA Players Association is discovering that you cannot use social media leverage to rewrite a corporate balance sheet. For the past 6 months, the mainstream sports media has been force-feeding the public a highly sanitized, incredibly misleading narrative regarding the impending WNBA collective bargaining agreement lockout. They are portraying it as a righteous battle for equality, where the players are simply demanding their fair share of a massive, newly generated economic pie. But behind closed boardroom doors, in the executive suites where the actual financial modeling takes place, a completely different, brutally unforgiving war is being waged. And the owners just dropped a financial nuclear bomb that changes the entire landscape of women's professional basketball forever. We are witnessing the absolute unraveling of the players' negotiating leverage. This collapse is being driven by catastrophic financial leaks, highly complex corporate accounting structures, and a deep, toxic generational civil war hidden inside the players' union itself. To truly understand why the 2026 season is standing on the edge of the abyss, you have to completely ignore the emotional press conferences. You must follow the cold, hard, unvarnished money trail that leads directly to a newly published, explosive report from Front Office Sports. A report that completely destroys the central argument of the players' union and exposes the harsh reality of the WNBA's actual viewership metrics. The players' union has anchored their entire multi-million-dollar demand on the premise that the league is suddenly swimming in cash due to exploding television ratings and sold-out arenas. But they are purposefully ignoring the uncomfortable fact that this unprecedented economic boom is not a league-wide phenomenon. It is a highly localized, highly concentrated microeconomy generated by a fraction of the workforce. Listen closely to the brutal, undeniable reality of the league's actual viewership metrics and why the owners are flat-out refusing to pay the entire roster for the economic stimulus package provided by one specific demographic.
I've been telling y'all, they want this revenue, right? They don't have the viewership to cover the revenue they want.
The mathematical reality is that the WNBA, as a collective 36-team entity, does not have the sustained historical viewership to justify the astronomical revenue-sharing models they are currently demanding at the negotiating table. Outside of the Caitlin Clark economy, the Angel Reese economy, and a handful of established superstars, the majority of the league is still operating on the exact same historically stagnant financial metrics that have plagued the organization for almost 3 decades. You cannot demand that billionaire owners radically restructure their entire long-term financial architecture based on a massive one-year viewership anomaly caused by a single generational draft class. Yet, the players' union is relentlessly pushing for exactly that. And to understand why the union leadership is willing to risk a catastrophic league-wide lockout over these specific demands, you have to look past the rookies and examine the deep underlying psychology of the veteran players who currently control the collective bargaining strategy. There is a massive generational civil war brewing silently inside the WNBA locker rooms. It is a conflict driven by a veteran establishment that spent the last 10 to 15 years playing in partially empty arenas, traveling on commercial flights, and earning relatively meager salaries while desperately trying to keep the league afloat. Now, these veterans are looking at the massive tidal wave of cash, the lucrative television deals, and the global attention brought in by the new generation. And they feel a deep, overwhelming sense of entitlement to cash in on that newly minted wealth before their athletic windows close permanently. Listen to the completely unfiltered, highly aggressive translation of what is actually driving this unyielding holdup at the negotiating table.
Want some money because they're on the tail end of their careers. This isn't about Caitlin. This isn't about none of the young players. This whole holdup is about these old players that's on the tail end of their contracts. And it's very...
The veteran leadership within the players' union is operating with an extreme sense of financial urgency because they are on the tail end of their careers. They know that if they sign a conservative, incremental collective bargaining agreement, they will retire long before the massive financial benefits ever hit their bank accounts. They are effectively trying to orchestrate a massive, unprecedented cash grab. They are aggressively leveraging the incredible momentum of Caitlin Clark to extract maximum capital from the ownership groups, viewing it as a retroactive reward for their years of underpaid service in an unbrandable, low-revenue era of the sport. But the billionaire owners are not running charities. They are ruthless, highly calculated private equity investors and corporate titans who refuse to subsidize the retirement funds of the veteran establishment at the expense of their own long-term profit margins. And this brings us to the most complex, highly misunderstood element of this entire labor dispute. We have to look at the structural, almost impenetrable corporate accounting architecture of the WNBA itself. The Players' Union has been aggressively pointing to the newly negotiated $2.2 billion 11-year media rights deal as absolute definitive proof that the league is now incredibly wealthy. They are demanding that this money be immediately redistributed to the workforce through a 27.5% gross revenue sharing model and a massive spike in the salary cap. But the front office sports bombshell report just exposed exactly how that $2.2 billion media deal is actually structured. And it completely annihilates the players' entire economic argument. It reveals the incredibly heavy taxation that the National Basketball Association extracts from the WNBA before a single dollar ever reaches the individual teams. Listen to the absolute mathematical reality of the WNBA's corporate structure and why the individual franchises are effectively broke on paper despite the massive television contract.
Without paying 42% to bucket control by NBA owners and 16% to new investors, each WNBA franchise will get roughly $13 million.
This right here is the absolute core of the financial stalemate. This is the ultimate masterclass in what financial analysts call Hollywood accounting. The WNBA players believe that a $200 million per year media deal means the league has $200 million to spend on salaries and benefits. But they are completely ignoring the fact that the National Basketball Association, the entity that has heavily subsidized the WNBA's financial losses for the past 28 years, maintains a 42% bucket control over the league's equity. Furthermore, an additional 16% is legally allocated to brand new private investors who recently injected critical capital into the league to keep it operational during its expansion phase. When you take the $200 million annual media rights payout and you subtract the 42% extracted by the NBA owners, and you subtract the 16% owed to the new investors, you are stripping 58% of the revenue completely off the table before the individual WNBA franchises even open their accounting books. The 15 individual WNBA teams are not dividing $200 million. They are dividing the remaining 42%, which mathematically equates to roughly $5.6 million per team per year from the television rights deal. $5.6 million per team is an absolute fraction of what is required to run a sustainable professional sports franchise. It cannot even begin to fund the astronomical $9.5 million collective salary cap that the Players' Union is currently demanding in their latest proposal. Because of this incredibly convoluted, highly structured corporate ownership model, the income statements of the individual WNBA teams are effectively meaningless. The revenue is being siphoned off at the league level to repay decades of accumulated operational debt and to satisfy the equity demands of the NBA power brokers who actually control the puppet strings. The Players' Union is walking into the negotiating room demanding 27.5% of the gross top-line revenue. They are demanding to be paid before the NBA takes its 42% cut, before the new investors take their 16% cut, before the massive new costs of league-wide charter flights are factored in, and before the individual arena leases and operational marketing budgets are cleared. When the billionaire owners took the union's latest proposal, handed it to their team of elite corporate accountants, and ran the actual 10-year financial projections on what would happen if they agreed to the players' demands, the mathematical result was horrifying. It was so completely devoid of any rational business logic that it effectively ended the negotiations on the spot. Listen to the exact catastrophic number that the owners presented to the league as the definitive reason why they will absolutely choose a multi-year lockout over signing this suicidal collective bargaining agreement.
Revenue over the lifetime of the league. A source familiar with the league says the claims this would result in $460 million loss over
$460 million in projected cumulative losses over the lifetime of the proposed agreement. Let that massive, franchise-destroying number echo in your mind for a moment, because it represents the impenetrable brick wall where the players' public relations leverage completely shatters against the reality of corporate finance. The union is aggressively, stubbornly demanding that the ownership groups voluntarily sign a legally binding contract that mathematically guarantees the league will bleed out nearly $500 million over the next decade. No successful business person on the face of the earth, no private equity firm, and no billionaire sports owner is ever going to sign a document that guarantees a $460 million loss They will not do it just to appease a workforce that refuses to understand the basic mechanics of equity dilution, gross revenue versus net profit, and operating expenses. The owners would literally rather lock the arena doors, completely cancel the 2026 season, lay off the entire front office staff, and let the league go completely dark for a year, than sign a suicide pact that systematically destroys their financial portfolios. The tragic irony of this entire standoff is that the players' union is using the unprecedented, historic popularity of Caitlin Clark to make demands that will ultimately prevent Caitlin Clark from stepping onto the basketball court during the absolute peak of her cultural momentum. The veteran establishment is playing a highly dangerous, incredibly reckless game of financial chicken with a group of billionaires who have an infinite amount of time and an infinite amount of capital to wait them out. If the players' union does not immediately wake up, fire their radical financial advisors, drop their demand for gross revenue sharing, and accept a deal based on net operating profits, they will lose everything. The greatest era in the history of women's professional basketball will be suffocated in its infancy by greed, entitlement, and a profound, tragic misunderstanding of how the sports business actually works. What is your unvarnished, highly analytical opinion on this massive financial standoff? Do you believe the veteran players are justified in trying to cash in on the Caitlin Clark boom before they retire, or are they being completely unreasonable by demanding a percentage of gross revenue? And more importantly, do you think the billionaire owners are using Hollywood accounting tricks with the NBA to hide their true profits, or are the projected $460 million losses a brutal reality? Drop your completely unfiltered, highly analytical thoughts in the comments section below. If you want the brutal, uncompromising truth about the real business, the real strategy, and the real financial politics of professional sports, hit that subscribe button, brutally smash the like button, and turn on the bell notification so you never miss a deep dive. We do not do mainstream media fluff on this channel. We follow the leverage, we expose the accounting, and we reveal the mathematical reality behind the press conferences. I will see you all in the next breakdown.